So, Belgian Grand Prix is done. Absolute barnstorm of a race, absolutely fantastic, and a bit of an interesting evening, basically. So, you know, a great race. George Russell had led home and Mercedes won 2. Normally, when that happens, we get Mercedes boss Toto Wolff. Normally, straight after the race, if it's a podium, it delays, it gets a bit delayed. But today it dragged on and on and on, and eventually some whispers in the media huddle there saying, oh, he's underweight, he's underweight. Then it all kind of unfolded from there, and confirmation, George Russell's car was found to be underweight. It's a kind of non-negotiable situation for a team. You're underweight, you're out. End of story. Phil, what did you kind of make of the situation, and what do you think's triggered it? What are the theories?
It's hard to say because these are Formula One teams. Yeah. They're not supposed to have a car that's kilo and a half underweight. They know what they're doing. They're much smarter than we are. So it's not something that you see very often, but we do have a few factors maybe that could lean into it. A one-stop race for Russell, yeah, which was not really what people had in mind. It was very much a surprise that people were able to pull that off. And then here in Spa, you have this it's the longest circuit on the calendar, so you have this weird thing where they're not doing an outlap. So they're not going all the way around. They're coming straight back into the pits in the opposite direction. So that means they don't get 7 kilometers to pick up all sorts of rubble and pick up to bump up the weight a little bit.
Yeah, it's a strange one. We spoke to, Toto didn't really have an answer tonight. The team knows they've made a mistake. They can't appeal it. There'll be an analysis, whether it was the tyre factor. And we're only talking, it's 1.5 kilos. So you're talking 400 grams per tyre. It's a tiny, tiny amount. So I'm sure there'll be some deep digging into why it was. But equally, Russell wasn't the only person who did the one stop today. Other cars did a similar, not identical stint length, and didn't get disqualified. So I'm sure it's answers that'll come out afterwards. But irrespective of, the disappointment for Mercedes, they still won. It would have been a 1-2. Now it's just a 1, basically, for Lewis Hamilton. Quite remarkable, especially because on Friday, the team was in so much trouble. Pace-wise, it wasn't there. I remember standing at the back of the Mercedes garage straight after FP2, and they came out. You could tell from the body language of George and Lewis as they went up the steps to engineering, they looked very downbeat and depressed. And Toto Wolff went up the steps and kind of looked at me, shaking his head. So it was clearly something was on. Overnight engineering work, they basically took off a new floor they brought here because they weren't convinced by it. They made some mechanical changes to the car to kind of take it back to how it was at Silverstone, and that unlocked it and transformed it. And also a bit of an eye-opener for McLaren. McLaren's been the quickest car for quite a while, but today it kind of spiraled out of control. For Norris in particular, having started, right up there, many places ahead of Max, you'd have expected to come in front, but it all went wrong on turn 1, really, Phil.
Yeah, turn 1.
You spoke to Lando afterwards. A, what happened? B, what was his reaction?
Well, A, what happened, I feel like he sort of overcompensated for a crash that wasn't going to happen because it's a classic turn 1 Spa. It's often, 3 cars side by side going through. So you very easily get shoved out wide or get hit from somebody lunging out the inside. We've seen that several times. I think he maybe sort of over-adjusted for Piastri, who was coming up on the inside, but there was still plenty of room for Piastri to go to. So maybe, he admitted afterwards as well, he just miscalculated it, went wide when he really shouldn't have. And we got classic Lando being very self-critical, saying, I've made too many mistakes, it's not clicking for me. And there was an interesting observation because I put that to Andrea Stella as well afterwards, and he kind of admitted that, there seems to be a tendency of Lando making more and more mistakes sort of towards the start of the race, and that's something that they're going to have to analyze.
Yeah, I think we had breakfast with Zach Brown this morning and made reference to the fact, I know Lando wasn't on pole today, but I think 5 pole positions he's had and 5 times he's not led after the first lap. So I think there's some deep diving to go there, but equally, Gasly did make a strong start. He was challenging there, and but for a few seconds, could have come away with a win today, but it went wrong at the final pit stop. You spoke to Oscar. What was his reaction?
It's just one of those things. You're on warm tires. You're trying to stop at the very last time at the pit stop. You just overshot it a tiny bit, and it wasn't a major error, but it does cost you 2 seconds, and that 2 seconds means that even if it didn't cost him a position, it was still costing him the chance to go attack Russell. It's 2 seconds of tire life that you need to get out of the tires to close the gap to overtake. It's all the small things McLaren have been doing. It just snowballs out of control very quickly. So you have to be at absolute max to win races in F1 now.
Yeah. I think it's another race weekend where, and this was put to Andrea Stella tonight, Phil and I spoke to him, where another perhaps missed opportunity that it could have been so different for the team. They could have had the pace to be challenging for the win, a double podium. We don't know, but it didn't happen. But equally, I think Andrea Stella was right that a lot of people went into this race today thinking that Max Verstappen is going to come charging through. That Red Bull was mighty quick yesterday. I know weather conditions were different, but it looked to be the fastest car here. This is a perfect stomping ground track for it. Very good aero efficiency, brilliant DRS things. This is the perfect track for them. So I think today there's a lot of head scratching. Christian Horner tonight said it was bizarre how the things had turned around. They weren't quite sure what the situation was. And it's an interesting dynamic now because we've got a cost cap in Formula that's all equal, but equally we've got some aero testing restrictions that weight things. And at the moment, you could argue the two quickest teams are Mercedes and McLaren, and they're the two teams that are going to have the most wind tunnel development time because they were 3rd and 4th in the Constructors' Championship at the break. So you spoke to Andrea. He was quite upbeat about it all, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, he tried not to be too upbeat, but he couldn't really hide it too well. It's sort of a double whammy of coming into the season, having more development time, and then right before the break, when the next cutoff is for the second period of the ATR, as it's called, they're still behind. So they still have that extra bonus development time. And that's going to be a great help because they can choose where to invest it in 2025, 2024. They can maybe do both a bit more than Red Bull could do.
Checo Perez was very, very disappointed tonight. Qualified second, should have been up there running. I think Helmut Marko, quite outspoken after the race, said Perez's pace collapsed. He slumped down. Christian Horner wasn't very kind of upbeat about things, so it wasn't great from Checo. There's a meeting tomorrow, we understand, at Red Bull HQ in Milton Keynes to discuss what they do for both rest of this season and 25 regarding drivers. Checo Perez is going to be on the agenda. Daniel Ricciardo's fate will be on the agenda. Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda. So there's a lot to decide tomorrow. It seems to be he's not done enough. You get the impression speaking to Christian. What was Checo's mood like at the end of it?
Yeah, it looked pretty much fed up.
Yes.
He pronounced he was not going to answer any more questions about the future, which I can understand because there's been a lot of that. But didn't look great. Also tried to find excuses. It's the tires, it's the strategy. We didn't get the straight line speed we needed. There's sort of, he was looking for reasons, but it wasn't really finding one particular reason why he's had this collapse, as Helmut Marko called it. It's sort of, I don't know if it's the tires or this or that. Didn't really seem to look at himself too much, but it's a tricky situation because, as you say, you needed Hungary and Spa here to be good, and they weren't good enough. Daniel Ricciardo, was he that mega? Maybe not. He was obviously not helped by the team strategy last week. Good race today, given the car that he's had, just missed out on the point. It's one of those, there's no clear-cut yes he's out or yes he's in. It's sort of, I don't know, it's like a 50-50 or 60-40 decision. So I'm really interested to see what Helmut Marko and especially Christian Horner are going to do tomorrow.
I think the final person worth talking about today is Charles Leclerc. Obviously started pole position, led early on. Lewis Hamilton came past him. So for a while, it looked like Ferrari got on top of their problems. The high-speed bouncing wasn't a massive issue. And then he faded as well. What was his reaction? He was a bit upset, wasn't he, afterwards?
Yeah, he was very upset, actually, for somebody that finished 4th and then turned out to be 3rd. I think especially because Mercedes were 1-2. We were talking about McLaren versus Red Bull, or McLaren versus Max, maybe more accurately. Then Mercedes has that 1-2, and it looks like Ferrari was sort of the 4th quickest car in pure pace. Yeah. So what I think happened is he overperformed a bit on qualifying, put it on the front row, and became a pole position. So in a way, he probably was a bit quicker than we thought. But then in the dry, they're still lacking pace. It was okay at the start, but then as the fuel load goes down and they go faster through the corners, that high-speed bouncing issue came back. So they still haven't solved it. And it doesn't look like they can keep up with the 3 teams around them.
So that's it. Packed down, as you can see, is going on behind us. We've just popped out the paddock because it's complete chaos in there and everyone's in a rush to get away on their summer holidays. So we'll be back for Zandvoort. Still got some bit more work to do tonight. And we'll find out maybe then if Red Bull have got a new driver or not. Bingo.